you have an agent?
Yes. How I got into it was with the agency. And so a piece of advice that I give, and again, because I'm in Canada and I'm in West Coast Canada, I don't know what it's like down here or anything. What I sometimes recommend is getting in contact, and this only works in Canada, it probably transfers to the States to some degree, but if you get in touch with the acting unions, they can generally give you a good list of reputable agencies in your area. Because there's a lot of agents, I'm sure, that are looking to take your money, and they're going to promise you're going to be a big star, and then they can't make a career for you, right? They'll tell you they can until they have your money, and then suddenly you're on the back burner and they won't care anymore, right? So at least there's a lot of agencies that are kind of registered with, I'm assuming, registered with the acting unions. So get in touch with them, check out their website, see what they have going on. Find some agencies in your area, and then ask them questions. Agents only get paid if you get paid. So the more research you do about them, the better off you're all going to be. And a lot of agencies have voice departments now, which they didn't when I started, but a lot of them do now because voice has become a huge industry, right? So as much as you may want to audition for these agents to get, to be part of their roster, you're also auditioning them to see if they're going to be a good representation for you. And the only reason that I really say that I need an agency is because if a show's coming to town and they're doing casting, they're the people that know. And they, generally what happens is, let's say a show is auditioning, they're auditioning several characters, but let's say for one character, they have, 10 to 15 time slots they can give to that character. So they'll call the agencies, and they'll call 6, 7 agencies. They'll say, okay, so you have 3 slots for this one character, and you have 3 slots, and you have 3 slots, you have 3 slots. And so that agency will have to look through their roster of talent. They call us talent, which is embarrassing. So they'll look through their roster of people, and they'll say, okay, well, I think Brad would be good for that, and I think, Joe would be good for that, and Mike would be good for that, right? Now, those slots are filled. So it's really not that easy for somebody just off the street to expect to get auditions for things, because generally, time is money, and they try and move things pretty quickly. So by the time the agencies have submitted working actors for these roles, they just don't have time to see everybody. Every once in a while, studios, like I know Funimation has done this in the past, where they will do open calls, but those are also usually general calls too. It's not usually for a show. They're trying to bring in new talent to their inner circle of things, right? But that stuff doesn't happen very often. So my advice is always do your research and see what's out there and what's available to you. We have easy means to find information now. So that's probably the best advice, and then see what works for you. And I mean, as far as getting practice doing voice work, there's more available to you for that type of thing than ever before with all the stuff that's being produced on the internet, right? It's not all going to be Dragon Ball Z or Bleach or Naruto or anything, right? But it's a start, and it gets you kind of in the mindset of things. So it's not going to hurt you. Again, practice and research is never going to hurt you, unless you find out that it's something you don't want to do. Then you always have a choice, right?
All right, I think Melly.
Yeah.
You have any stories about Mason Goku?
Masonic Goku. Has anybody seen Masonic Goku?
I love
Yeah.
that anime series, and I have
Nice.
those horrible.
That's awesome.
I'm leaving. I gotta go this time. There's other things I gotta do.
We miss you already. Enjoy the rest of your convention. Maison was kind of an interesting series to work on because they had recorded a handful of episodes. I'm not sure how many they did initially, and this was before. I think this was before I was even doing voice acting. So they only did a small block, and then there was a huge hiatus, and then they picked up the show again. They decided they were going to finish the series. So the actor that was playing Godai initially for the first short batch, I think his name was Jason Gray Stanford, something like that. And I'm pretty sure he had moved to LA to do more on-camera stuff, so he was just unavailable. So they cast for that, and I got to play Godai. And that show was a lot of fun. That's right. How many people know of that show? No? Okay. Oh, well, that's more than I expected. Okay.
Feel special doing 2 Takahashi?
What's that?
Feeling special doing 2 Takahashi shows?
Yeah. I mean, pretty cool, right?
Yeah.
Pretty cool. Yeah, I've been pretty lucky, and it's kind of sad now that there's not a whole lot of anime that's coming up to Vancouver right now, and I'm hoping that's gonna be kind of a temporary thing. But there's a lot of reasons for that. You know, our dollar becoming par with yours really hurts productions coming up there, and you know the industry itself is in a bit of a flux right now, so it's a bit weird. But I was just lucky that, you know, the time that I was getting into it, I got to work on some like pretty monumental shows in the anime world, right? And it's so nice to feel that I, you know, was a part of some of this awesome art history, and it's amazing how, you know, anime and Japanese culture for a lot of things has kind of seeped into North American culture. And at one point it was something that nobody understood. They just thought it was weird, and so they poo-pooed it right away and stuff. And it's amazing, you know, like, I mean, obviously we have strength in numbers. You know, there's something to be said about these art forms that we're passionate about. And there's enough of us out there, you know, when we kind of bond together, we can make anything popular. And I love seeing the influence that anime and whatnot has had on you know, modern pop culture. And it's really fun to be, you know, to have a very small part of that process. It's pretty sweet. Like I said, it's a good gig when you can get it. Any more questions? Okay, cool. Well, I'm gonna wrap. You just brushing your hair? Kind of. That was a half question. You're thinking about maybe asking a question.
Yes.
Okay.
Think about how to phrase it.
You're gonna call me a bad name, aren't
Where do
you?
you think the industry could be headed? Do you think that with all the houses and companies like have been closing up, do you think it's possible for us to go ahead and, you know, rise back up on it? Because I know even the industry in Japan is suffering.
I know. I don't know. I guess that's up to us. I don't know how it's up to us. But, well, one way, like, I don't know, I'm not in any kind of position to preach about anything. I don't know enough about the inner workings of the industry to really talk intelligently about it. But I have a feeling that, you know, a lot of the anime, just more so as it pertains to making its way to North America, was a very niche market for a very long time. So they could kind of, it could be conducted how it wanted to run itself. And now it seems, and this is just not anime specific at all, but with the way that media sharing has developed, with the technology that's come along with it, we're in a really exciting time for technology, obviously. But there's a lot of industries all around the world that are jockeying for how they can thrive in those type of, in this new world. Okay, that was kind of like a Death Note throwback there. And I will be God of that new world? No, that's just weird. So yes, I mean, I like to think, obviously, if there was no more of this, there's a lot of people that would be very unhappy, and we'd have to all fill that void somehow. So there's got to be a way that we can make this a sustainable industry. And I think it's going to be a lot of give and take on both sides, on all sides. And there's going to be a lot of people that are going to have to step up. I mean, you know, like, piracy is killing the industry. But there's a lot of you know, maneuvering. I don't even know how to say it. Like, again, I'm talking unintelligently about all this, but I'm sure there's ways we could have found common ground, and it seems like we're kind of going in that direction. I mean, if you look at something like iTunes, right? Well, you know, music piracy was huge, and now something as simple as iTunes has made music easier to access without breaking your bank account, right? Like, I mean, if you can't, you know, drop $1 for a song, then you really probably don't deserve to be listening to that song, because if you like the artist and you like the song, support them. And I know, unfortunately, you're actually supporting, like, their record labels and things, right? But, I mean, that's just the way it is. So a lot of these big businesses that kind of run the art that we enjoy so much, we all got to come to a table at some point and figure out how we're going to make it work for everybody. And if it means that people have to take cuts in certain places and make concessions in certain ways, if we're all willing to do that to support the art forms that we love, then there's no reason that we can't make everything the way it should be. That's all easier said than done, unfortunately. There's a lot of cooks in these kitchens, and some are more difficult to deal with than others, and we can be difficult too. So Wow, yeah, help save me from my sermon.
How long does it take to record a 26 episode series?
About 26 minutes.
Oh, okay.
No, okay. It really depends on your role. Okay, so to give you an idea, like a Gundam series where there's a lot of fighting and stuff, and there's tons of different characters, so, every character, not every character has a whole lot of dialogue because there's a lot of battles, a lot of sound effects and things like that. So I would generally record, we would do batches of 4 or 5 episodes at a time, and I can do, I've done 4 or 5 episodes in one day before, depending on the size of the roles that happen, right? And then a show like Death Note will usually, I think we still did batches of about 4 episodes at a time, and that would be spread out over a couple of days. And there wouldn't be full days. We haven't done that in a long time. There used to be times where we do like full 8-hour days, but it's really taxing on the voice. Like imagine doing 8 hours of Dragon Ball Z. Impossible, right? I think that was one of the shows that kind of started to pare down the sessions. So I would go and do 4 hours of Dragon Ball Z, because it's all screaming, right? You can only scream for so long before, and then be expected to come in the next day and do the exact same thing. It's impossible. So generally it's, a 4-hour block maximum, spread out over, a couple days in the course of a week, and then it's usually like the next month or a few weeks later we'll get the next 4 or 5 scripts. So it's kind of all over the place. Every show is a bit different, but that's generally how it works. When we were working on X-Men, so like a prelay show, we would record 2 episodes in one day. So those were more 8-hour sessions, but that's the entire cast. With the ADR shows, the dubbing shows, it's one person at a time. So if you're having like a 4-hour session, you're talking for 4 hours, or shouting for 4 hours, or crying for 4 hours, or whatever. It's all you. It's not trading off lines. It's all you. So it's kind of all over the place. But yeah, I've recorded 5 episodes of a series in 20 minutes before too, because there's not a whole lot of stuff. It's a lot of reactions or whatever. So it's kind of all over the board, very show specific, that type of thing. Yes.
Have you been able to tell there's much difference among studios on how much attention they pay to pronunciation of names? I raised the question, having discussed it with several people and getting the report that in some studios, the director will insist on their pronunciation of a name no matter what.
Yeah.
Well, I checked the Japanese soundtracks for Japanese pronunciations, but I've noticed also that the Japanese get German, French, and Russian correct. Overman Kangana, for instance, has a lady named Lyubov, Russian for love, which gets rendered Lyubov on the dub.
Yeah.
So I'm asking, I don't want you to pinpoint a particular studio unless you want to, but in your experience, some studios pay more attention to the pronunciation and check Japanese soundtrack even for the European pronunciations?
Yep, I can only speak for the studios that I've worked for, and it's a bit different in Vancouver than it is in let's say, Texas, because Funimation is the big machine in Texas, right? So they're kind of a self-contained unit. So they do almost everything in-house, like even their distribution and whatnot. In Vancouver, most of our productions were based out of LA or New York or somewhere else, or right from Japan, and so they come through Vancouver. So we don't have like a Funimation in Vancouver. We have several studios, and I could be working on, a Bandai show or a Viz show or whatever at various studios. It's whatever studio is available for them to use for the purposes of the show. But that being said, so the studios in particular don't have too much to do with it. The people they bring in to work on the shows, that makes all the difference. For Ranma, which we recorded for I think it was 8 years, because it was every few months we recorded, a couple of, it went on for a long time. We had a great rap party when that was done. There were some tears for sure.